Good evening, everyone. This is an impressive turnout for a Thursday at 5 p.m. in December in the United Kingdom. As you can hear, the party has already started next door in the banqueting house, so we hope they'll keep the music down during our event. I'm really pleased to welcome you here at RUSI for this event on NATO and the cloud with NATO's Assistant Secretary General for Cyber and Digital Transformation, Jean-Charles Ellermann-Kingombe. It's really an intersection of a lot of our programs here at RUSI. The event is part of RUSI's ongoing Cloud Sovereign Project, and I don't know if our sponsors are here, but our Cloud Sovereign Project has several consortium members, among them Microsoft, Google, AWS, BAE Systems, Palo Alto Networks, and PwC. And you can hear among that group the intersection of the tech world and the defense world, and that's what we really try to foster here at RUSI when we approach these issues. And programmatically, it's our cyber and tech team and our military sciences research groups that have been expanding their research on cloud, but thinking more importantly about its applications that we're seeing on the battlefield every day and the questions that that raises. We're in the process of launching a project on cloud sovereignty to try to identify what's meant by the concept, but also how it interacts with technical realities and how governments and military should respond. And the purpose of today's event is just to help build your understanding of NATO's position on cloud integration, some of the struggles with that in the current strategic environment, and the role it plays in wider digital transformation. So just a short introduction. I already mentioned that Jean-Charles is the Assistant Secretary General for Cyber and Digital Transformation at NATO. That office is relatively new. It's a product of some reorganizations made under the new Secretary General, Mark Rutte, but I was pleased to hear that you've got a combination of technical experts and policymakers. So it really, and then of course military operators that are always in the DNA of NATO. So you've really got that perfect ecosystem for thinking through these problems. In your capacity there, you are the Secretary General's primary advisor on maintaining NATO's innovative edge and on all the issues related to technological change, cyber defense, hybrid threats, and their implications for NATO's security. So certainly a growth area. Before that, you served as a diplomat in many roles in the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and most recently as the Permanent Undersecretary of State for Foreign Affairs at the Danish Prime Minister's office. So again, very impactful at the center of the action. We will start with the ASG setting out NATO's vision for cloud adoption and integration, talking through some of the problems and applications they're grappling with. Then I will go into a few questions, but then we will turn to the audience for Q&A. And the speech and the discussion and the Q&A, I'm pleased to say, are all on the record, and the event is being recorded in case you miss anything or need to go back and look up terms like I will, and it will be available on our website following the event. And on a very practical note, particularly given the party next door, if you hear a fire alarm, just follow the people in charge by the door to the nearest exits. All right, with that, Jean-Charles.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Rachel, to you and your team at RUSI, not only for organizing this gathering, but for the timely work you're doing on the Cloud Sovereignty Project, and for the necessary conversation it fuels on the intersection between sovereignty, technology, and national security. I will share a few thoughts on how we see those things at NATO, but before I do this, let me offer you a little scene setter to better understand why we talk cloud at NATO in the first place. It's 0417. A multinational battle group is deployed to contain a rapidly escalating crisis on NATO's eastern flank. Without warning, an enemy drone swarm appears on the horizon. Almost simultaneously, cyber probes begin infiltrating Allied networks, and GPS disruption clouds the air picture. The confusion is deliberate, a coordinated attempt to paralyze decision-making in the opening minutes of a confrontation. On the ground, a platoon commander is trying to make sense of three incompatible systems: local sensors showing one version of events, an intelligence update that is already hours old, and a national threat report that cannot talk to anything else. Above them, an Allied UAV is gathering imagery that could clarify the threat, but it sits in a different national cloud environment bound by rules that prevent instant access. Only a short distance away, the Joint Headquarters receives fragments, satellite queues with delays, radar tracks that cannot be fused, logistics data housed on a legacy server that cannot interface with operational systems. Leaders are forced to decide, but with blind spots they know they should not have. Now, consider the same moment. It is still 0417, but this time we are equipped with a modern, trusted, sovereign, capable cloud architecture. Every sensor, national or allied, feeds into a shared, secure data environment. AI-enabled tools instantly correlate drone signatures, cyber activity, and ground movement. Commanders at every level see the same operational picture updated in real time. Air defenders receive validated targeting data. Logisticians know immediately which supply routes are compromised, and cyber teams counter the intrusion before it becomes an attack. Political leaders receive a unified assessment grounded in facts, not fragments, within seconds, not hours. The contrast between those two futures has nothing to do with imagination. Just ask our friends in Ukraine. It has everything to do with our ability to use data coherently, securely, and collectively at the speed of relevance. Modern conflict no longer rewards the side with the most data. It rewards the side with the ability to connect it, understand it, and act on it first. This is why cloud adoption is not a technical upgrade discussed by specialists in quiet rooms. It is an operational and strategic imperative, one that will shape deterrence, crisis management, and ultimately the credibility of our collective defense. In other words, cloud is essential. But if cloud is essential, then speed is existential. The threat picture we face is grave, and we are in a technological race. Russia and China harness artificial intelligence and machine learning. They are exploring quantum computing and autonomous systems powered by cloud architectures that evolve every day. So not only do we need to drive NATO's digital transformation, we need to do it with a clear sense of urgency. That means building a modernized digital backbone to enhance intelligence sharing, accelerate decision-making, and strengthen operational readiness across all 32 allies. All this by 2030, implemented and exercised. In recent years, we've been setting out the policy framework, establishing key principles around zero trust, data security, and interoperability. We're now going into implementation. We call it the year of the cloud, to remind us the imperative to have a firm grip on execution. The first 10,000 NATO employees have already migrated into public cloud environments, and steps are now being taken to operationalize cloud at all levels of secrecy. This has been driven both at NATO enterprise level and among allied nations, in close collaboration with industry. It's a collective effort that, while being implemented under the expectation of speed, needs to manage a multitude of challenges. Let me briefly flag a few before dwelling on one in particular. Our systems need to be cyber resilient at a time where the cyber threat becomes increasingly sophisticated. We also need to deliver interoperability across diverse national capabilities and maturity levels while respecting differing national regulations. We need also to develop ways in which we can validate new systems, maybe even in real time, to reduce vulnerabilities while accelerating deployment. And finally, we need to develop contracting processes that allows us to benefit from the dynamic development cycles that drive the technology. And then there is the issue of digital sovereignty that you have also been taking a closer look at here at RUSI. This is not an issue we are taking lightly, and I want to make it very clear. Sovereignty is not a slogan. Lights out. It is a matter of trust, control, and resilience. For governments and defense organizations, sovereignty means knowing where data resides, who can access it, and under which jurisdiction it falls. It means ensuring that our critical information and infrastructure cannot be compromised, coerced, or subjected to foreign interference. And at a time where we are asking nations to explore the possibilities offered by this new technology, we owe it to them to take their concerns very seriously. Our approach is one of confidence through cooperation. Within NATO, we are currently considering 3 dimensions of sovereignty. First, data sovereignty, as the need to control the location, but most importantly, the access to your data. Operational sovereignty, as the need to control how systems are operated and by whom. And technological sovereignty, as the need to maintain the ability to continue operations even if a provider withdraws or is sanctioned. These are not theoretical distinctions. They are practical requirements for resilience and independence. At the same time, we must acknowledge the trade-offs. Full sovereignty often comes with reduced scalability and innovation speed. There is no silver bullet, as there is no single model that satisfies all needs. Nations will have to adopt multiple models, from globally connected clouds to isolated or air-gapped sovereign environments for highly classified workloads. This diversity is not a weakness, but the pragmatic expression of sovereignty in a complex world. It is the balance between autonomy and alliance, between national control and collective capability. But amid these challenges, there is good news. And I think it's important to say it clearly. Digital sovereignty does not mean digital isolation. Across the Atlantic, American and European countries, so current industries, are working closely together to provide real solutions. We see new models emerging where US hyperscalers partner with trusted European operators to deliver jurisdictionally isolated clouds that respect local control while retaining innovation speed. We see the rise of immunity partners where domestic providers operate hyperscale technologies under national law. And we see European and American engineers jointly developing privacy-enhancing technologies and trusted execution environments that make cross-border collaboration safer than ever. It is widely acknowledged that digital sovereignty gives you the power to control your own digital destiny. But we should also keep in mind that sovereignty and openness can coexist through technical safeguards, open standards, and interoperability. To summarize, we are seeing convergence, not divergence. Convergence built on shared democratic values and mutual trust. That is why we should be confident. We can advance at pace with cloud adoption while addressing sovereignty concerns responsibly. We can protect what must remain sovereign, our secrets, our decision-making, our command authority, without losing the innovation and resilience that come from NATO-wide cooperation and partnership with industry from allied nations. Sovereignty and interoperability are not opposites. They are the twin foundations of our digital security. And as we look to the future, to multi-domain operations, to AI-supported command and control, to quantum-resilient cryptography, one thing is certain: no nation and no company can achieve this alone. Only together, governments, industry, and academia, can we build the sovereign, secure, and scalable digital infrastructure that the Alliance needs. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we integrate cloud technology into every aspect of NATO's operations, we are building systems that are not just tools for defense, but reflections of our alliance itself. The way we structure and accredit these technologies speaks directly to how we view sovereignty, autonomy, and collaboration. And initiatives like RUSI's Cloud Sovereignty Project show us the power of integrating operational challenges into a larger strategic framework of shared values. To close, let us ensure 3 things. First, that we act with urgency. The threat evolves daily. Our technologies and defenses must evolve faster. Second, prioritize collaboration. Industry, academia, and allies all bring critical ideas and solutions. Harnessing them will make us stronger. And 3, design for sovereignty. Build systems that enhance autonomy, strengthen allied trust, and secure the foundations of our partnership in the digital era. And then finally, and this is probably to spare myself from the most technical questions in the QA section, we need to remind ourselves that cloud is not all about technology. There are our warfighters and our decision makers in uniform and government offices where I come from myself that are just beginning to understand cloud and all of what digital transformation has to offer. Training, education, and reassurance will be key. Changing mindset and habits, that's the real difficulty about technology. So once again, thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you. Very well done. I was indeed crossing off and revising some of the questions because you addressed so many of them in your opening remarks. And a lot of what you opened with that battlefield example, sounded very familiar to someone like myself who's followed NATO on the conventional side. This need for speed, this need for a common operating picture, and for all different sources of data from all 32 allies and different command and operation centers to be integrated. That has always been a challenge. That has been a challenge even when we were talking about, analog and something like air command. On balance, is it your view that the integration of the cloud technologies and what you've described as this balance between interoperability and sovereignty, will it be a leap forward in terms of decision support and enabling the operator compared to what NATO has known in the last, few decades of its existence? Or will it complicate things?
The war in Ukraine, the Russian aggression in Ukraine, with all the evils that it has brought, it has also given us a very concrete understanding of the potential of what we're discussing today. Some years back, the thinking was that AI and many of the new digital solutions were something way out in the future. We can see now from the battle space what these systems, technologies are delivering to us. 90% reduction in decision-making time as a reason of AI underpinned command and control systems in Ukraine. 40% reduction in the use of 155 millimeter shells because of improved targeting, AI underpinned. So I think there is a very compelling case for the difference that this would make. So the combination of this, but also the fact that our adversaries are investing massively in this technology is what really warrants the speed and urgency that I've been arguing. So yes, we have very clear belief that this ability to collect data, to fuse data, to analyze data, and to transform it into actionable insights at speed will be absolutely critical in the battle space of tomorrow, and is already critical for our Ukrainian friends today.
Thank you. Yes, the moment is now. So you in your remarks, you talked a lot about sovereignty, but I can imagine in in an environment where there are many reasons for zero trust, whether that's because there are a lot of vulnerabilities, technical vulnerabilities that make it difficult to fully rely on one another, or because it's a political environment where you wonder what certain actors might be up to with your data. What are you saying to allies at NATO to reassure them that they can trust their data sovereignty, they can trust one another, particularly because there are these technical solutions that you've laid out?
Well, first of all, we are telling them that their concerns are completely legitimate. There is some of the most valuable resources you sit on as a nation in a digital age are your data. Obviously, for decision makers to be comfortable about putting this data into a new environment, a new technology that they don't know, they need to be reassured. I think that goes without saying. So one thing is we understand, and in the architecture and the principle that we're developing, we're very much trying to address these concerns. I mentioned zero trust, so-called data-centric. So there are a number of technical solutions, and I believe that there are plenty of technical, how should I put it, fixes to address these concerns. But that in itself is not enough. We need also the political reassurance, and that takes time. We want to engage with industry, but industry also needs to understand that they need to reassure us. Can we trust them? And I think so there's a conversation. It'll take time, but I think the good thing is that we are seeing today a lot of concrete solutions emerging. Solutions where countries build a secret cloud system based on hyperscaler stacks, and then combine with an integrated solution from a European company, systems where hyperscalers establish local jurisdictional branches to address that concern. So I think the ecosystem understands that sovereignty is not a conversation that will disappear. Sovereignty is a conversation where we need to convince allies that this can be addressed without compromising their fundamental interest. But I think at the same time, I think we also need to be very open that there are a host of combinations. The one end of the scale you've got the public cloud, hyperscaler cloud. On the completely other end of the scale, you've got these air-gapped cloud solution on a physical premise. Now these solutions offer you different possibilities. Some offer you great reassurance, but maybe less innovative change opportunities. Some of them offer you maximum agility, continued uptake of new system solutions, but maybe less reassurance in terms of the sovereignty. So allies will need to navigate in that. They will have to choose across that menu, and I think that is one of the challenges that we have, is particularly as we look at the more secret levels of this discussion, is we will end up in a situation where we, on the one hand, because we are the Alliance of 22, that we need to be fighting together, so we need to be interoperable. So that's one important concern for us. And on the other hand, we've got 32 nations, which I said come from different backgrounds. They have different national legislations, different levels of technical maturity. So they'll probably choose different models. So we need to build a bridge between that multitude of ways of doing it, with the not only ambition but the necessity, the critical necessity of having an interoperable system, because otherwise we are not fully in the second part of my little scene setter example from before. Yes.
No, it sounds like you're really doing a lot of work at NATO to build in the minds of the permanent representatives at NATO and other decision makers an understanding of what are the use cases, what are the trade-offs. Well, you can have these 3 things, but you can't have these 5 things. I think that's where it starts, with the education. I can imagine, even with all that effort to educate people and get them to understand the challenge and as well as the options, that there are different levels of cloud adoption and different levels of interoperability across the alliance? I mean, this has always been a problem in NATO, where you have some who are more capable than others, and in an alliance of 32, certainly there is a weakest link problem there. How do you ensure interoperability across the alliance to make sure that there aren't these power imbalances and resultant vulnerabilities?
I think as you stretch yourself. I mean, we are 32 allies, and in everything we do, these are very different allies, both in terms of size, in economic muscle, in technical capability, and an important part of what we do at NATO is also, to capacity build those which are at an earlier maturity level within this or that technology. Now, one of the projects that we are launching now is that 16 countries are of those that are probably a little more advanced. They are together with us in NATO headquarters. Will over the next year try to develop together a system where you can have a joint infrastructure that brings together different national models, but in an open source infrastructure. So on the one hand, you create an open common space, but you also allow for different national models, and you try to build a bridge between those two to create a what we call federated identity system. So we know who is it exactly that accesses the common pool, yes, if you wish. So this is an example of how would you try to build the bridge between different national systems that addresses different national sovereignty concerns, and on the other hand, the need for all those systems to be interoperable, because otherwise, good luck with fighting together.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds very like it's the first step to building trust. I want to open it to audience questions, so get ready. One more from me, though. You spoke a lot about the role of industry here and how they've been a very vital partner in building this trust, giving you the technical solutions that you need. When you've gone back to industry, or allies have conveyed their requirements or their concerns, how responsive has industry been able to be to offer or adapt their technological solutions to the requirements and needs of allies? Have they been open, or is it a bit, is it a bit like adding price to a contract?
I think there was a time how should I put it, in earlier days, where innovation in the defense area was coming out of government programs. Now that time has long gone, and today there is an enormous innovative drive in our industry, in our private sector, that we are completely dependent on, and therefore we are very keen to engage with industry. In some of the pilot projects that we're driving, industry have key roles. Some of the things that we are trying to explore in those pilot projects is also how can we ensure that we uphold the necessary security requirements while giving a bigger role to industry. How can we in general rely on industry standards to accelerate security creation of some of our system. So I think we are very keen to work with industry. I think we have just held very recently a big cloud conference with 500 participants, a huge turnout from industry, and I think that there is a very good dialogue, and I think industry has a lot to offer. They have a lot to. They have their concerns and complaints. So do we. But I think there is a common understanding that this is a joint effort. And I think in much of the designs of many of the new solutions that we're developing, I mean, industry is baked in. An example that is not directly to do with the cloud, but NATO is currently, as part of its cybersecurity agenda, establishing a so-called integrated cyber center at our military headquarters in Mons in Belgium. And there is the idea to not only, staff it with NATO officials, but also with representatives from all of the 32 nations and from industry and academia, because they are a part and a parcel of our effort. They drive the new solutions on cybersecurity. They are very advanced. They've got loads of data and assets on which we rely to be able to do what we'd have to do. So we are keen to work with industry, and in any collaboration there will be good things and more complicated things. But the overall sense of direction is we need to work closely with industry, and we feel that industry is for us a trusted partner.
Good. Do you ever take them along to exercises so they can help design solutions to some of the challenges you're seeing?
I think the fundamental change we are doing in these years in understanding how can we deliver innovation at speed. And I think here again, to take a step back, we have for many, many years, defense solutions have been provided by the defense industry of the big, the Lockheed Martins, the BAEs, also trusted partners, and they will remain trusted partners for the foreseeable future. But what we're seeing in recent years, also fueled by Ukraine, is that there are suddenly a mass of new solutions that address some of our capability gaps that are provided from a whole new ecosystem of tech companies, startups, companies that work in completely different ways than we've been used to, that have much more accelerated development cycles, and that as an inbuilt natural element of those development cycles have interactions with the end users. Then you provide a prototype, you test, you fail, and in that dynamic engagement, you develop the solutions. That departs fundamentally for how we've been developing capabilities in the past. So we've been forced to rethink how we do this. Much more focus on exercises, much more focus on demonstrations where private companies can test their solutions in real operational environments. We have this summer launched a number of what we call innovation ranges to ensure that for instance, tied to some of our forward land presences on the eastern flank, there are environments where companies can come and test solutions. So demonstration engagement with the industry is very much, we understand, a part of how we develop new capabilities at pace.
Excellent. All right, let's open up to the audience. I know we have a lot of people who probably understand the cloud ecosystem. Yes, front row, please.
Hello, my name is Anthony, and I'm a RUSI Distinguished Fellow. And my question is about edge. So if we have a cloud strategy, we probably need an edge strategy, and I'm interested in your reflections on that and how NATO might approach it.
Yeah, I think my little scene setter very much demonstrated the edge challenge. We need to make sure that we have a system that is resilient, that allows the warfighter on the edge to amass information also and treat it also when there are longer or shorter periods where they're cut off from headquarters. So I think that is very much baked into our strategy. The program, ACE program I mentioned before, where 16 countries go together in trying to develop secret cloud solutions, has also a clear edge dimension to it. So that is very much an integrated part of our cloud work in general.
Lots of hands. It's hard to know. Let's go in the middle there, please.
Hello, my name is Peter Dory. I work for a cyber threat intelligence company, but my question really is, we've seen in the cyberspace what I'd call a ethical imbalance in terms of the behavior between adversaries and ourselves who want to keep our Western values. We've seen an ethical imbalance on the battlefield, we would say, between what we're seeing at the moment in Ukraine, Russia. I think we'd probably agree on that. When we move into an AI-enabled cloud world, how do we ensure that we keep our ethical balance correct and maintain our Western values? How do we build that in from the start so that we don't run away with things?
First of all, I share your assessment of the ethical imbalance. I think that is part of being a member of an alliance that is also built on values. But in our development of many of the new technologies that are emerging, what we call the emerging disruptive technologies, we have from the outset built in an element about responsible use. I think to address exactly this concern, that we make sure that we exploit the many possibilities that arise in a way that doesn't compromise our fundamental ethics. We have developed, for instance, within the AI, we've had the data in AI review board that has been developing tool sets where nations kind of agreed on a list of questions you need to tick off in terms of how you prove different solutions. So I think there's an awareness of this, but there is no doubt that this is a challenge, not least if we accept the assumption, which is that we are in an aggressive technological race where both those direct adversaries or those that in other ways represent security risks from us are not restrained. But again, this is very much the working conditions when you are in a value-based alliance.
Left side this time.
Thank you. Tom from industry. I have a quick question about training.
Sorry, about?
Training.
Yes.
Oops, sorry, that was loud. Training. So you spoke in your remarks about the idea that NATO used to, and member nations used to be the technical leaders, and what they now have transitioned to doing is looking to industry to help provide technical solutions to NATO's challenges. How does NATO become the expert at those systems? How does NATO appropriately train itself and its people to be able to have the knowledge they need to have to not only procure the right systems, but then use them in the right way?
Just as when you acquire new platforms, the new fighter jets or the new tanks, I mean, there is an important training dimension to this. That goes without saying. Same thing will happen as we take on new digital tools. I think that is very much baked into the way that our armed forces are currently reviewing and assessing the lessons learned from Ukraine. I would add another dimension of training, and that is, and where some of the difficulties we have in delivering that speed I mentioned, and that is very much, the decision makers, the acquisition teams, the whole bureaucracy. I'm a bureaucrat myself. I find that is not a curse word, but it is it's a reality, and that whole ecosystem, if that doesn't understand new tech, if that doesn't understand how it needs to be matched in terms of agile procurement systems, for instance, then we have a problem. And I think there's a tremendous educational challenge that cannot be underestimated. I mean, most decision makers are as myself, above 50, and we even grew up without mobile phones. So to suddenly understand what is a zero trust and what is a cloud and I mean, what can AI do? I mean, that's a hell of a journey to go on at a time where you felt that you had kind of accumulated all the knowledge you needed. Huh? So I think here we have a challenge, and I think here again, I really think that again on a terribly sad background, but the war in Ukraine has really moved knowledge a lot, also amongst our most senior military leaders. They have been out there, they've been seeing with their own eyes what is the difference it makes for me as a leader on the battlefield, and that difference is one I would actually like to embrace. So I think so that knowledge is slowly trickling down, but we need to make sure that it doesn't only trickle down through the military ranks, but also through the administrative ranks around them that need to make sure that they get those tools in their hands at timely. Sorry.
There's probably a real opportunity here to link the agenda that you mentioned with the recruitment and reserves, and a lot of countries reinstituting conscription and national service. I can imagine there are a lot of young people who are very good at adapting these technologies.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Milana Travers, international lawyer. I've started a PhD on civilian protection in the age of automated and algorithmic warfare. And my question, and forgive my ignorance of the technology, but how can you ensure who accesses this data? And you've spoken obviously a lot about industry, but also perhaps some of the negative unforeseen consequences when, you know, we've seen examples of, you've talked about Ukraine, so I'll give an example from Ukraine, of people sharing photos of drones or footage and so forth, who ought to be civilians, but therefore by interacting with the war digitally become combatants and are legally able to be killed. And I'm worried or curious about this data acquisition for that reason as well. How does it change the definition of a civilian?
I think solving the data sharing conundrum is one of the absolutely critical dilemmas to solve. Everything that we've been talking about and the examples rely on data being shared, but also on data being shared in a way that nations are comfortable with, that companies are comfortable with, because some of the data we'll need, we'll ask companies to share with us. To give you an example, we've been discussing for the past few years, how do we better surveil our critical undersea infrastructure? And much of that data around protection of industry, all the sensors that are sitting on the cables, etc., these are data owned by a private sector. Now, for them to share that data with us, they would obviously also want to be ensured that the data is only used for that very specific purpose. I think data sharing is at the heart of a digital transformation. There are a number of policies that have been developed around this. I think the technological solutions are there, but it's getting the right policies in place and assuring allies on the difference that they will make, that will be the challenge.
Hello, good evening. Dominic Kerndall from Oakland Consulting. I was very interested in the focus that you brought to sovereignty, and this clearly is a big issue. Is it that you envisage technologies being developed by nation states and members of the 32 that are then interoperable, or is NATO seeking to build technologies that those nation states can then make use of and load their, share their data with? Is it an organic integration layer across NATO countries, or is it the interoperability of systems that are sovereign to the nation states?
I think we as NATO do not have an ambition to build the solutions ourselves. I mean, we want to develop the ground rules, the policies in which an ecosystem of private solutions will function. Now, when I talk about the interoperability challenges, when you will easily face a situation where, a number of nations, they choose their different providers, and we need to ensure that those solutions, and they choose those providers in a configuration that addresses their sovereignty concerns, but we need to make sure that they do that in a way where those solutions can actually share data with the solution chosen by the other state. So that's why I said in the beginning, so a combination where you build infrastructure where we agree that we use open source, that the tissue that brings is open source solutions to facilitate the sharing. And I think that is but I think the idea is still that you will have a multitude of different solutions, and I think you will have that for a reason, because allies, I would assume, at least in the early stage, will not, they will have a very strong focus on what are these specific sovereignty concerns that we need to address at home for various also political reasons. And once that is reassured, we are ready to engage, but then we need to make sure that they have used solutions that will actually allow them to engage with others.
Hi, Dan Henry, PDG of Apollo Minerva, former colonel. We spent an awful lot of time intervening and fighting over the past 30 years in partner countries. And so it's a safe bet we're going to do that in future. How doctrinally is NATO going to integrate partner force clouds or partner force edge computing with us? I worked in headquarters when my teams were generating intelligence. It flowed into the American system, got classified by the Americans as no foreigners, and I'm sitting there with exactly the same data in the meeting going, but we generated this. How are we going to work with the likes of Jordan? How are we going to work potentially if Syria gets hot again? How are we addressing the near term?
I think from experiences in Afghanistan, for instance, you've had operational systems where that allowed you to work with a number of partner countries. So that is not new to us, but obviously the partner dimension will also need to be addressed. I think where we are now with the project I've described on developing particular secret operational cloud systems, I think on the short term we are focusing on trying to build it for NATO and for the NATO allies, but obviously the partner element will need to be considered also. Because there will also be use cases in the future where we will be working in operational conditions with partner countries.
May I ask where Ukraine fits into that picture, though? Because, they are almost, this is more out of area, but Ukraine is part of collective defense, and in fact, they've taken this deliberate choice to sort of outsource their essentially their nation and all the information onto an external cloud, many of which those data centers are resident in NATO countries. So one could argue, if there's a cyber attack on the Ukrainian data in a NATO country, does that trigger Article 5? Just generally, how are you thinking about Ukraine? Sorry, we have to finish with a hard one so you can earn your drinks.
Well, we are currently now it's obvious that the model that Ukraine used, and I think there was a model they were forced to use to go in a public cloud immediately with the Russians just around the corner. They've obviously opted for a model that would probably not be possible for us to use. But what we're actually doing now with Ukraine, we have established in Poland the first formal institution between NATO and Ukraine. It's called the JTAC, which is an institution that is established to share lessons learned from Ukraine with NATO, and also for NATO to inspire them in developing their new solutions. And part of this work, we've actually right now, and this is one of our most recent lessons, we are developing a pilot on a secret cloud solution to allow us to explore data sharing between them and us. So it's like, this is a very concrete example of how we are trying to also in this area to continue to learn from them. And the Ukrainians, they have operated what is called the Delta system, and I think they are very much have been very much able for quite some time to do many of the things I described in my early scenario. And here there are tremendous lessons for us to learn, and I also mentioned earlier that I think some of the takeaways that have really make the biggest impression is how they've been able to reduce decision-making time. And we will, and the funny thing is that they had configured their platform to a large extent on overall NATO requirement, and so I think they're so impressive in many ways.
Yes, some reverse learning from that particular partner. Good. Other questions?
Gregory from Dartrace. I was interested to know what NATO's perspective on, you mentioned before adversaries making a lot of investments as well in AI, and what is the role, the perspective of capability in NATO, especially with interoperability by design and sometimes in cloud lack of architectural awareness, to be able to detect and respond to threats, unexpected threats like APTs, 0 days, but also insider threats, especially with the interoperability?
I think on the cyber threat, the APTs, etc., we are also here developing our capability at NATO. Our SACEUR, our Supreme Allied Commander, has no longer only the responsibility for protecting us on land, in the air, and in the water, but also in space and cyberspace. And so one of the things we're doing is we're developing this cyber center that is precisely to increase our understanding, our situational awareness about what happens in cyberspace, to share faster knowledge from one APT attack in Finland. What are the lessons learned? How can they be used to bolster the defense in other countries? And I think here, as I mentioned earlier, the idea is that the industry will be part of that setup. Already today, we are working very closely with industry. Some of the bigger companies have very, very advanced cyber protection know-how. In general, the cloud services that the hyperscalers are offering us, some of those that we choose for our public cloud, are very convincing cyber protection setups. So this is something that is also that we also rely on here. We're very close collaboration with industry. But the cyber threat is one that evolves all the time. Will be further reinforced with AI, and we are playing this catch-up game all the time. But there is no doubt that the transition to cloud for us also on class domain is also we consider as a means of bolstering our own cyber protection in general.
Right, final question in the front row. You've been very patient. The front row always gets overlooked, literally.
Hello, I'm Mike Bracken from Public Digital. Many sectors, as they embrace the cloud, find that the data and the tooling that they use locks them into certain providers. As you develop your cloud services across NATO, how can you ensure that there is a competitive mix, and also if any provider displays behavior not appropriate with the politics and morals of your group, how can you then exclude them or protect from the misuse of that data?
I think the concern to be locked in with certain providers, I think, is a concern that we hear a lot. So I think so this is something that we're very mindful of. When I described earlier that we are trying to, for instance, with this ACE project, to create a infrastructure based on open source, I think that is also very much a reflection of this. So I think this is something that is very much part of how should we put the reassurance exercise to allies. There is an understanding that to move at speed. Right now, we are relying on certain number of front runners, if you wish, but we need to be ensured and reassured that in doing this, we're not preventing ourselves from other solutions. And I think some of the models we're seeing today, where in concrete solutions you have combination of maybe a hyperscaler to provide the stack, the bottom, but then an integrator from a different country. That kind of model we see a lot, and I think is very much part of that overall conversation. And then what do we do with those that don't comply with our rules? I mean, I suppose that if you've been awarded a contract on certain conditions, then there is a compliance obligation, and if you don't live up to this, I would suppose that there are some contractual tools to address this.
Okay, we'll squeeze in one more question, but let's keep it brief, please.
And not too technical.
Not too technical.
So it actually follows suit by the questions up front. So NATO has its own system.
Sorry? Yeah.
NATO has its own systems, maybe not necessarily developed solutions.
But what is NATO's view on data sovereignty? So for itself and its systems, because data sovereignty means many different things. So you talk about reliance to third party and being able to control data. Data sovereignty means data remains inside region. Data sovereignty remains it's operated by people inside region. Data sovereignty could mean not using technology, US OEM capability. It could be not using US parts. It could be not using US third-party software. Like, what is NATO's view on what data sovereignty means for itself?
I described, I think our approach is sovereignty by design. So sovereignty is something you need to address. We have for certain, we have some. I mean, there's no such thing as NATO headquarters alone. I mean, we are driven by NATO policies developed at 32 and agreed at 32, and they are saying something about, well, if you are in an on-class or restricted environment, then you can use public cloud. If you are not, you have to use other solutions. But it's not that we're sitting at a NATO headquarters and we have one solution that only applies to us. I mean, we are bound by those overall policies, and those overall policies that are agreed at 32 then also bind the allies.
I think the good news is NATO is very used to operating as a collection of sovereign nations. So a lot of the conventional capabilities are owned and operated by nations and then put into the multinational context that you described. So at least as of today, the United States is still a member of NATO. So I think you don't need to worry just yet.
No, and as I said, I mean, we have the principle of sovereignty by design. So and when we have outlined, as I described before, when there were the two outliers, the full public cloud, the completely air-gapped cloud, and then for each and every solution you develop, there will be a trade-off of those two extremes. But that's something we're conscious of, and in respect of national, of use cases that are being addressed. But if your question was, can we at NATO quarters exclude companies from one country? We cannot exclude companies from any of the 32 allies. I think none of the 32 allies would consider that to be an acceptable alliance, policy for an alliance that serves their interests as for the other 31.
All right. Well, Jean-Charles, I think you've done an amazing job answering a very wide array of questions, some technical, some less so, some related to cloud, some related to cyber. So a big round of applause to you. Thanks for everyone for coming today. Just as a final point, I mean, I think it really is worth mentioning that everything you've described today, Jean-Charles, is part of NATO's 2030 agenda. And we're not even halfway there, or we're a little over halfway there, and you're really executing on this very meaningfully. I didn't think I'd be sitting in a room where we were talking about cloud adoption, digital backbone, sovereignty, data sharing at this juncture in NATO's 2030 journey. So credit to you and the team. All right. Good evening, everyone.